YouTube, it's Brian Phillips. Look at this, super excited to bring you this 64mm Rafale from FMS, the Dassault Rafale in this super cool livery. And yes, this thing is a singular 64mm. It has fixed gear. It's very light. We have more Ordnance, but we've taken it off. This would be our third flight, but we're gonna fly it like it's the first one for you guys, because to be honest with you, I found out some things on my first 2 flights, which we'll share with you either way. And yes, these are easily removable, but you need a 1.5mm to take that off. And look at that gorgeous landing gear. For being fixed landing gear, it is kind of over the top if you ask me. And yes, this thing is absolutely gorgeous. Back taxis well. Flies good, but it flies weird, just like other Delta configurations we've had in the past. So we're gonna take off right now and let you guys make your own decision. Full disclosure, this is our third flight. Like I said, 2200 4S. I'm using a 100C pack just because I don't like destroying them, but you can use as low as 30, no problem. And we did too. Look at that, guys. Jumps right off the ground. Does really good in low flight performance or low speed performance, but you do get the nose up and you will lose rudder authority. There is a rudder. Very, very touchy on the elevator because of the nature of the plane. But the stabilizer makes this thing a joy to fly. It's very different flying than your ordinary planes. The front canards are not functional. They're just there for coolness factor, and you see a little bit of overcorrection. Let's do some high alphage. That's so cool. Oh, there's a hawk up there too. And you guys see how it corrected? It just gets itself back into the attitude. I am not in auto leveling, but this plane, okay, low throttle. This plane does that. You get into these weird corrections. Okay, it'll fly upside down, so if you get in trouble, go upside down, seriously, like this, because then your rudder works, see? But when you're right side up, if you get into trouble, you have to wait for it to stall out and fall. Watch this. Isn't that the weirdest thing ever? And then it does wonky things. Get in the throttle hard, and then fly it like any other plane you've ever flown. But then you can do that too, which is always fun. And I've just learned recently that the whole upside down flying thing is pretty amazing. But look at that, no more authority. It eventually stalls out. Watch this, guys, okay. It eventually stalls out in the reverse high alpha to the point where you have no more authority and then you just have to bail out. It's so weird. Even under no throttle, it sounds cool. Yes, we do have some confused winds. And I'm trying to kind of showcase the high alpha more than usual because, to be honest, that's one of the coolest things this plane does. And you can do it with some level of impunity because the Reflex V2 is doing such a good job of correcting for a bad pilot named me. Super cool. Now, I also think, as cool as it is, you need to be aware it is not the same flying type of plane. Let's come up here. It's not the same type of flying plane that you're used to, so there will be some different learning curve involved, and you need to plan on it. Don't be afraid to jank the nose down after you pull out. I do a lot of corrections up at the top of my pullouts, and in this case, you can't do that with this plane. You have to be prepared for different behavior, and the rudder is sparing under normal operations. It works pretty good. But then under upside down or high alpha configuration, you will completely lose your rudder. So plan on it. Okay, that's our 3 minutes. We're gonna try to land. Cam crew, you good where you are?
Yes.
I wanna see if I can get a little bit better on the high alpha, but you gotta time it, guys. Because once you get into high alpha, you can really control the speed. Oh, that's so cool. But the thing is, you see how you can really slow it down? That doesn't mean it's gonna do it forever. It will plop eventually. And when it plops, it's violent and the nose flips forward. Okay, so let's try it again. This will be our best landing if I can configure that way. Let it configure itself. It will sort of do it. Pull back on the elevator just a little bit. Make sure you're ready to move.
Mm-hmm.
There it is, guys. So as you can see, that was the coolest landing, I think, so far, right?
Mm-hmm, I think so.
So as you can see, the thing is a really fun and different. Plane, I like it. It is definitely not gonna be my normal style. Let's pause and go get it. Just to avoid the appearance of impropriety, 1 minute and 14, 1 minute and 15, 1 minute and 16, past 3. So that was about a 4-minute flight time, plus or minus a few seconds. The 100C pack is not necessary. We'll actually probably fly another flight right now on like a 30C pack. I just find that when you have EDS where you're doing a lot of high alpha, you tend to need power, like right now. And you can't concern yourself with, well, I've been in the throttle a lot, so I need to back it off. And that's part of the way I fly, is I am good about trying to get out of the throttle, except for when I'm really excited, like on a Maiden. Also, this plane goes together super easy. It's not a hard build, but you do need to glue. So stay tuned for the unbox build radio setup if you haven't watched it. We lost our central antenna thingy down here.
Yes.
It's actually in the pile of our Ordnance sitting on our kitchen counter, so I could glue it back in, but I just didn't care. It fell out like 3 times while we were building, and I just gave up on it because I don't really care. Let's show you inside of here. Okay, Spectrum AR620 from Horizon, and then the Vector, or excuse me, not the Vector. This is the Reflex, the Vector's and arrows. But this is the Reflex version 2. Steerable nose gear is at about a 56% input to be going straight down the runway. Then when you get in the air, you let go. So I have a disparity between the rudder and the steerable nose gear, which is annoying to fix when you've got this type of correction, because there's not a really good mechanical adjustment. You can only go one spline at a time. So what you're left doing is you have to correct the nose gear and then correct your rudder to match, and then you can do it that way. So that's one thing you can do. I didn't do yet. And you'll note where we have that battery, it's back here a ways. I think we're calling that maybe about 1.25 inches from the bulkhead there. And we have a voltage alarm in there, so I can tell you voltages here. Okay, it looks like it's super sunny, so you have to take my 14 point something. Okay, 3.63, 3.62, 3.68, I believe. But my third cell, the top cell on this thing, is always off a little bit. Okay, so thoughts about this plane. Highest C pack you can fly with, do it. They only call for a 25C pack, folks.
Yep.
I would not do that, okay? Now, this is supposed to fly on a bigger battery too. And just to show you, one of the things we talk about is how hard is it to load a battery, how easy is it to load a battery. That's how easy it is to get it out, which is really easy. And as you can see, it's warm. Like it's warm, like it would warm your hands nicely. Here, would you hold that? But it's not anything crazy. And so definitely really worked good with the shelf liner trick. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna switch out batteries and see if we can get one more flight, and then you guys can make up your own minds. But so far, we're really impressed with it. And I think this is gonna be the type of plane. And I'm gonna say this, and I say this once in a while, and I think you guys hear it the wrong way sometimes. I don't want to cover for planes that fly bad. I want to tell you when it's me and when it's a plane. This plane flies really good, actually. It's just that I'm not very good at flying it. So I just want to make sure that I point that out. That landing was my best of the 3 landings we've had so far. I would like to do better. I would like to get into high alpha configuration and just let it stall into the ground. But the truth is, you also get into ground effect, and the thrust from this thing is really good. So what's going to happen is you will get it out from the thrust that's being accelerated into the ground with ground effect. But you have to be patient with it, and you kind of have to do this thing that I'm not good at, which is practicing. So if you guys want to fly this thing and you want to make it look the best it can, you're going to have to practice. Also, you'll note that it's kind of windy. I hope you can sort of hear it. The wind is not intense. It's actually very good wind for what we've been experiencing lately. It's been crazy windy. When it gets to me in full time in Iowa, it gets nuts. So it'll probably be like straight out here in a few minutes, that giant windsock, which my goodness, that sock is ripped up terrible. So anyway, we're gonna reset and come right back, so stay tuned, guys. Okay, so we're inside switching batteries, and obviously this is the one we just took out, which is the 100C 2200 4S. Now, you don't need a 100C. They're really expensive and kind of like over the top expensive. This is a 50C, also Gen 1, and I want that so I can put the balance lead onto a voltage alarm, which is really nice. If we had done, instead of an AR620 with the Reflex V2, we could do a 631, and you would have all the same stabilization setup and auto leveling setup, as well as off if you want. We didn't set up the offsetting in this, so it's just stabilization and auto leveling. But in this case, I don't have landing gear retracts, so I use switch A for that. So stay tuned in the radio setup for that. I just wanted to point out a fact that You can fly them on 30C. We did our first flight on 30C, and we'll be sharing that maybe at the end of the video here. But either way, you can see that this one does work, and it didn't like puff to death or anything like that. That is also a Gen 1. And I think we also did a Gen 2. No, we didn't do a Gen 2 yet. But I just wanted to point out something. This 2700, while it's alluring to use the 2700, it's just about 100 milliamp hours over the recommended size class, because 2200 to 2600 is what they recommend. This doesn't fit, at least not as prescribed by me. Let's look. You can get this in if you really, really, really want it, but look where it goes. It runs into a bind, okay? So now, the only way you're gonna be able to do that is if you go vertical with it. And look, same thing. If you want a 2700 in this plane, you can make it fit. It's just gonna take a little bit of effort. So I just wanted to point that out to you. And we have a plethora of different pack sizes. And we are gonna basically just, because we've already done the 30C, I'm gonna use a 50C. And the only reason I recommend going to a higher C is because if you have a 100C pack and you have a 50C pack, the chances of puffing your 50C pack are much lower. And I tend to push the limits on my planes. EDFs, I don't push because I know that they're gonna basically destroy my batteries. And later in the video, I'll be mentioning something about chargers. So just in case you weren't aware of what I was talking about, this is an S155 and this is an S2200, okay? So just keep in mind that both of these would be great choices, and then of course a single S1200, which is just a single channel. You've got the two sizes for all the different types of connectors, but my recommendation on this plane is if you don't have any other 6S planes, you can do this and it'll work perfect. So that's one really nice reason to get the smaller Rafale over the bigger Rafale, which of course is an 80 millimeter, and an 80 millimeter that calls for a 6S pack. Now that thing is a powerful plane. It is weird flying, full functioning canards, and there's inboard flaps and outboard ailerons. So I don't think they're actually usually configured the way that I configured them, but we're about ready to do that plane again with the Reflex V2. So we won't have to do any of the controls, and I'm kind of excited to see how it flies, because when we did that initially, we did it with an AR637.
That was a long time ago.
Yeah, it was. Okay, so now note that I'm gonna slide that back just a little bit past. My line is right here. I'm gonna go just a little bit past because I like the high alpha configuration. And by the way, one thing that you may notice about my flight performance is that this plane does a little bit more tail waggle than what you might expect if you went nose heavy with it. So if you don't mind and you've got a really long runway and you just wanna bring it in and just try to do like a real minor flare, or even just land it on all three wheels, you can do that, and it is one way to actually get that thing to fly a little bit more rock solid in normal flight performance. Again, to all their own, there's a million different ways to skin that cat. But like I say on this channel, we tend not to skin cats because we have cats. So without further ado, we're gonna plug this in and let things go through their normal ranks. It's the weirdest ESC startup procedure. Weird. And you'll see the dances for the stabilizer, and then that like random like I don't like you, Brian noise. It sounds negative to me. It is. But anyway, okay, so we're gonna get back to it, so stay tuned, guys. Oh, and by the way, if you take off your Ordnance, this is what it looks like. Oh, yeah. And earlier I had mentioned that I had lost this antenna. So I could plug that back in if I wanted to. I just don't care. It's not that big a deal. It's gonna get lost if we belly land it. I do like this Ordnance. It's light, but I don't like this Ordnance because it's big and it creates a lot of drag, in my opinion. So I would suggest, especially if you're doing belly landings, this is kind of a nice sacrificial lamb. These do not come out and go in very easy. But that might be good for belly landings because they're gonna be the thing that hits. So just keep that in mind. That's probably why they fit tight. Also, wanna go over this. I went into my dual rates in Expo while we were off camera for just a quick second, and I changed my elevator. Normally it would be 5, 10, and 20. In this case, it's now 10, 20, and 40. So like I always teach you guys in the Unbox Build radio setup, you do 5, 10, 20, and you set it to the middle. And then if you find that the higher setting is better, then you can switch it back. But in this case, I'm only messing with the elevator. I feel like the roll authority is perfectly fine on the ailerons. Even though they are the same control surface, I don't have a problem with it. And I also feel like the rudder has plenty. In fact, I could use a little bit more rudder at times. So the other thing I was thinking about doing, which I haven't done, is that in order to mechanically trim the tracking, it's gonna be a bit of a pain. I'll probably do that off camera, but I'm just gonna go over this again one more time. When you wanna do that, if you need to you'll take a screwdriver, and I'll just point at the parts so you guys can see really good what I'm talking about. You'll take your Phillips screwdriver, or your Phillips like this, and you'll take and you'll undo this. You'll pull that thing off the spline, and then you can move it over. Or you can just simply run your trim on your regular control surface. You can just run your trim over like this, okay? Whatever direction you need it to be. And then what you do is you mechanically center your rudder. Now, why is that a problem? The reason that that's a problem is that you actually are gonna give up some of the throw because you are not sub-trimming. And even if you are sub-trimming, you're still taking some of that away. So I wanna just talk about that for 2 seconds. I'm gonna go into servo this time, and I'm gonna go to travel, and I'm gonna go into the rudder, and I'm gonna set it to 150% and see if we can move. See how it's at 142? You see why? Because my trim. Okay? So now, I'm gonna click back into servo setup, and I'm gonna scroll that all the way up to 150. So now what that's gonna do for me is hopefully in my high stalls, I can still get what I need out of it. So that's pretty cool and easy way to improve the flight characteristics. Now, it might also call for a little bit more expo, so I'm just gonna preemptively kick a little bit more in there, and that's because I know it's gonna do this, okay? Clear that stupid timer. Dual rates in expo. And rudder is at 10 currently, or 5, or 20. I'm gonna go ahead and set this to like 15, and then we'll go to 30, which is a doubling effect, and then this one I'll put to like 7, okay? Set it back to the middle, we're ready to fly. So guys, one other thing too, if you haven't figured this out from watching Brian Phillips RC, after our Maiden, sometimes a couple of flights, especially on planes like this where we have to do some kind of fiddling to get them to fly the way we want, you always wanna watch the entire thing, or at least skip ahead and see if you see me doing radio setups. And we're gonna be changing from the initial radio setup that we do, and that's already been released. It's released like a minute before the Maiden flight videos. So you can go in there and watch it, but just remember, you gotta watch the Maiden so you understand if I made any adjustments after the fact. But we still always wanna give you a good starting point that's consistent, and so that's why we do that. All right, we'll be flying next, stay tuned. All right guys, coming back with the 50C 4S, and throttle cuts off. We've made the adjustment to the rudder for more throw. We've adjusted to a little bit higher expo on elevator and rudder because of the additional rudder throw as well. So without further ado, here we go. Watch how quick she gets out of the hole. It's just amazing. Okay, out of the throttle, just a little bit, about 50% throttle. On my Maiden flights, I was a little disappointed with the power performance, but I'm getting used to flying this thing and it's actually not bad at all. That was a 50% into 100% just so I could do that low level turn. Also, some of you are thinking, come on, FMS, we wanted retracts on this thing. Yeah, I kind of agree, it would look sweet. That's as good a cornhole as you get, by the way. And by the way, ooh, she's beeping, is she? Yeah, she is. I gotta let her recover for a second. In the bowl. Whoa, that is crazy, guys. The rudder is so much better now. I feel a lot more confident because I have that other primary control access to use. See how it tipped right over, almost in like a stall turn performance? Look at that, that's so cool. But it's a power suck too. It's so weird, the control surfaces literally flip how they work if you get into some of those high alpha and reverse high alpha. You get into you pretty much use up your entire surface, and then all of a sudden it flips. Oh man, that 150% on the rudder is huge. I feel so much more in control now. Okay, 1 minute and 19, 17, 16. Yeah, so we're good. I'm just wondering if I want to try to, why am I coming into land with the wind? That's pretty dumb. Out of the throttle, just gliding. Doing an inside pass here. Oh yeah, touch and go on the 37-foot approach. Oh, we have an intruder. You see the intruder? Mm-hmm. Should we go and intercept the intruder?
It's been hanging out up there.
Okay, beeping. You hear it? try some high alpha. That looks so sweet, guys. Oh boy. Yeah, the rudder is so much more responsive now. Oh, but you see what I'm talking about? You just got to grin and bear it because you have no control, guys. Do not land in that tree, guys. Oh yeah, baby, I saved it. Woohoo! You guys see what just happened there, folks? There is no recovering from that. You just have to grin and bear it.
That's crazy.
That was a pure luck thing too. That's our timer. Watch yourself there, camera crew.
Yep, I'm good.
Yeah, baby. Woohoo! Getting so much more good with this plane, and it's so weird and so like counterproductive, or excuse me, not counterproductive, counterintuitive to what I'm used to as an RC pilot. It's like all the mistakes that you think you're gonna make, it just kind of like says, no, it's good. And then the things that you know to do, you're like, oh crap. Okay, so let's talk about what happened. Throttle cuts on, by the way. That was 30 seconds of back taxi, so let's call it 3.5 minutes of flight time. Okay, so over here I was flying. I wanna point over here with the people. So I was over here flying, and I got myself into a high alpha configuration, okay? Now, I don't know if the wind was maybe impacting or the rotor from the trees, or, you know, actually the rotor would be on the other side of the trees. It would be going over because the wind is kind of cutting through the yard like that. So when I was in that high alpha, you have most of your power dialed in. And if you dial in more, then you can fly out and away from it. But if you're all the way in, and you're all the way back, and you're all the way rolled left and right, and nothing happens because there's no air moving across any of the three surfaces, guess what choice you have? Chop your throttle.
Hang out.
Wait for the wind. I got so lucky. I was like, oh, I did not want to look at a Rafale in my tree for the next 6 years, because that's not my tree, and that's a big tree.
And people don't know, if you were standing down there on the other side of the hill, like there could be a whole building down there and you wouldn't be able to see it.
Oh yeah.
It's a big.
Yeah, so you're probably 75 or 80 feet to the top of that tree.
Yep.
So let's talk about the plane in closing here. I totally want to fly more, and I might do a little bit more off camera, but I don't want to lose the plane because it is absolutely gorgeous. And I gotta say, this is like the type of plane that you just want to keep flying. Oh, by the way, the taxiing ability is so much better with that 150 on the rudder. Oh. I wish we would have done that on the first go round.
That's true.
Man, that is absolutely fantastic looking. We're probably going to include our initial maiden and second flight, because I think what's changed on this plane is certainly not much about the plane, and certainly a lot about me as a pilot. I think this plane is a great flying plane. It's capable of flying on a relatively inexpensive 4S pack. You can do a 30-seat pack, no problem. I just want to run the best packs I have. And I gotta say, honestly, this thing looks the part. And here's the thing. Here's a couple thoughts about this. What are my complaints about the Rafale? Okay, my complaints are also my strengths, or my strengths for this plane. The canards are fixed. Okay, is that a strength or weakness? Obviously, if you want it to be scale and look the part and do everything you can do with a real Rafale and be able to get out of those high alpha configurations easier and possibly save your plane, that would be a negative. But if you're not as good a pilot and you're maybe not used to flying the weird planes and you're a newer pilot, this plane is actually better because it flies more like a Delta plane that we've flown in the past, and it's less wonky. But it is weird flying this plane. I gotta say, it's not weird bad, it's weird interesting. So it makes you wanna get better at it. And also, coming into high alpha, those landings, I just feel like it always wants to configure with the nose down, but then you can force it into that high alpha configuration. But we don't have that much room to actually convert from forward flight into high alpha. And you do not wanna, you basically have this period of time where you go from normal flight to high alpha, and then it starts stalling, okay? Because there's not that extra 10% of power that you need to fly away from a high alpha. So I think my lack of skill is definitely contributing to that. But also the other thing is, now the wind's going that way. What the heck? So maybe I was landing with the wind.
It's confusing.
Gosh, I think it's just changed. Well, and that is one thing to keep in mind, is it's you know, a sunny Saturday morning. The sun rays are beating off the ground. We got thermals and we have wind. Just 2 hours ago, it would have been dead calm.
It's going that way, but then it's going this way in the windsock, and I can feel it coming this way over my face.
There's a thing right there.
I know.
A building.
That's what,
so it kind of splits around the
Yeah.
house. So anyway, getting back to the point, I love the plane. My complaints are, it'd be cool to see LEDs even on a plane like this. I know that's kind of an expensive feature. That'd be the first thing I'd give up, by the way, because I'm not going to fly this in low light. I want to be able to see it. It's a little bit too complicated for me to be flying in low light. Secondly, I would love to see retracts. Again, makes the plane heavy, makes the plane more expensive. So it's a good trade-off, in my opinion. I don't even care that there's not flaps on this, because you're not going to use flaps on this plane. You're going to bring it in, and you got to high alpha the thing. That is the flaps. So the other cool thing is, because we have the AR620, we actually have a spare channel. So if we needed to put in retracts and we just couldn't live without them, we could find retracts from a small plane and put them in there. And then that would be a huge pain, and I'm not doing that, so don't hear me wrong. But I do say retracts would make this thing look cooler in the air. I don't like taking retracts. I don't like taking fixed gear off, because I like the wheels up, wheels down experience so much. However, every time I do it, I always love the plane even more. So it's definitely something that holds cost down and holds weight down, which is more important in this plane. So in closing, my biggest gripe on this plane, as a less experienced pilot, and I'm gonna take the responsibility for not being a good enough pilot, is that I think more power would allow this plane to perform better in the hands of a less experienced pilot. So in a lesser, like me, a lesser experienced pilot would be able to perform better if they had a little bit better power to weight ratio on this. And I'm not talking about like it's way off. I mean, they get off the ground fine. It's just more a matter of getting out of high alpha. That is what everybody's gonna have problems with on this plane, compared to anything else. I think that's the thing that is gonna trap people, as noted by what happened over there. Now, we got lucky, we didn't lose the plane, but it was a miracle. I should have lost the plane. I was like getting ready to figure out what I was gonna say when I crashed into the tree. Yeah. And when I say I crashed into the tree, I was barely controlling anything. It was just kind of like doing what it was doing. It's like watching a leaf fall to the ground and you're like, oh, thank God it started flying. So then you take control and you go. So anyway, love the plane, it's really cool. It's definitely not gonna be an everyday flyer for everybody, but wheels off, maybe it is. Because you can put it down in a small field. I mean, you saw how slow you can fly it, which is really cool. I just don't know how long it's gonna last if you fly it like that, especially in ground effect, and you don't have landing gear to help protect it every time. I must say, landing gear have been very robust. We haven't had any issues, good taxiing, good ground handling. And yeah, definitely. So if you wanna stay tuned and see my first really, I don't wanna say comically bad, they weren't terrible. I actually got decent landings. But it's just almost night and day difference, literally, because it was night and day. But I feel like the flight performance just after my own practice on 4 flights is infinitesimally more fulfilling, better looking, more cool. Of course, we had that little thing happen. But that could happen to you on the first flight, so you just got to stay away from that envelope. You got to, don't get yourself stuck in high alpha that you can't undermine. So there is that period of time where anybody can do this for a few seconds, but then anybody, if you keep doing this, you're gonna fall this way, you're gonna fall that way, and it is weird. You won't believe me until you do it. You'll be holding the stick like this and the plane will go the opposite direction. And then you'll recover and it'll continue doing it. It's very weird. So that's something that you guys can look forward to if you fly this plane. And a little bit more input than usual on the way the plane flies, partially because my complaint with the previous Rafale 80 was that it flew kind of weird. It didn't fly bad, it just flew weird, and I'd never really made time to get good at it. So this thing is super cool and I love it, and I think it's a little bit more practical for the average Joe that's gonna be the type of people that watch our channel. So ultra experienced pilots are gonna have no problems with this. New pilots, you can fly it, but don't try to high alpha it. You need a long runway. You need to, put it in auto leveling and just let it land itself. It's not going to be a hard plane to fly, but it's going to be harder to do some of the fun stuff. So, camera crew, what do you think about this plane?
I think it looks really cool. I think it's one of those planes that sometimes you get a plane that's a challenge for you, and you like to learn how to actually fly it. You don't just pick it up and do it the first time. And this might be one of those planes.
But I also do love getting like a PA-18 and just going out and saying, oh, it's 30-mile-an-hour winds. I'm just gonna go fly for a few minutes, no problem. and loving every second of it, by the way.
Yeah.
This plane, The cool thing about jets, and I gotta say this, if you get nice laminar wind that's going in the same direction, jets are pretty good for that. So you can fly them. Now, where you're gonna lose your fun factor is when you're changing directions in your flight pattern. And so what I suggest is fly straight and just kind of don't worry about the transitional areas. And that's part of the reason why we try not to film our videos in high wind. But boy, I tell you what, there's nothing funner than just shooting landings on a good jet with high wind down the runway. Because you can land super slow and it's really fun and it looks ultra realistic, which is awesome. So anyway, guys, the Rafale 64 millimeter from FMS, definitely check it out. If you want to help support our channel, obviously the best way to do it is to watch the videos, like them, subscribe, click the bell for notifications, but above all, buy the planes from the links. It's even better than Patreon and PayPal, because even though we love that you guys want to support us on Patreon and PayPal, we feel sometimes unworthy of that support, but thank you for doing it anyway. We really do appreciate you. If you want to be a Patreon too, the link's in the video description below. We also have PayPal, and yes, people do send us money that way, which is super humbling, but at the same time, again, if you're gonna spend money and you don't have room for another plane, or you're afraid you'll be divorced if you get another plane, then I understand that PayPal or Patreon might be the only way to support us financially, if you want to support us financially. But the biggest thing is, we just love sharing the joy of this hobby. We want to bring you the best so that you can make the best of not only your RC budget, but your time and your investment into this hobby, because we understand, especially when you're new, it's hard. It seems like you're never going to get over the hump. You will. It takes time. Don't give up. Keep flying. Bring an easy plane to fly when you're about to fly something new like this. If this is going to be like your 5th or 6th plane, bring that first plane and just fly the heck out of it. Get 2 or 3 flights in, land it, be confident, and fly this thing. You'll be fine. And then if you crash it and you're not so confident anymore, don't leave on a bad note. That's one piece of advice I can give you as a more experienced pilot than you, if you're brand new, is to bring an easy plane when you're flying something that you might crash. And when you do crash, because it will eventually happen, fly the easy one, break the mental block that will build if you leave on a crash. It's very easy to leave pissed off and upset and just go home. And then guess what? Your brain will remember that last activity. So if you can break that cycle and just fly the good plane and say, you know what, that was awesome. Your brain will also say, I want to fly the easy plane too. So you have to also then re-break that cycle. But it's better to at least get back in the air. So anyway, you got to let him go, Goose. You got to let him go. Goose, he's not going to come back. I'm thinking of lines from Top Gun, and it's not working out the way I was hoping. But the thing is, this plane is awesome, guys. You'll love it. It's super fun. It's definitely not going to be for everybody, but I'll tell you what, the people that it's for, they're going to enjoy it. And also, I got to say, it is beautiful, and we are getting some amazing, I mean, just like some of these details like this. Look at this. We've got these details here made of plastic, okay? It protects for belly landings. This detail being made of plastic. It's easy to measure for the CG. All the stuff blends perfectly. And no, that is not jigged. That is not jigged and painted, folks. That is a decal that's that color.
Yeah.
Look, that decal is that color. That is a perfect match.
Yep.
We are loving these
Amazing.
perfect match decals. It looks so good. And then look at the bumps. We almost never see these little things anymore. You may see like 4 or 5 of them in the place where you used to see 100 before. So yeah, and then the landing gear look amazing. I mean, they look super good. I wish they were spring loaded, but this one is, by the way. See? And it's gorgeous. If you're gonna have fixed gear, you might as well make them look good, right?
Yep.
So anyway, guys, we love this plane and we love being able to bring this stuff to you. So thanks so much for watching. We literally have boxes stacked and we need to do more reviews, but we're trying to give it our all. And we're not trying to shortchange any of the planes, because at the end of the day, we know that you guys want to know what we think of them, because we are a good basis for comparison for you. We fly in the same environments under as similar circumstances as possible with one of the best camera crews in the industry, obviously. And so we hope that you enjoy the long format. If it's too long for some of you, we totally get it. Just skip ahead, do what you got to do. But when you're ready to buy, if we help to answer a question, or if you want to pat us on the back, get it from the links in the video description below. Also, check out brianphillipsrc.com. It'll help you sort through the plethora of the millions of choices, not quite millions. But the thing is, when you go online, every RC plane looks good, and not every RC plane is created equal. Trust me, we will prove it to you. Stay tuned. So much more from Brian Phillips RC coming. YouTube, it's Brian Phillips. Look, we got something new and exciting. We have the Rafale 64 millimeter from FMS. An absolutely gorgeous model. It comes equipped with the Reflex V2, which we're gonna show in the Unbox Build radio setup, which should have published about a minute before this video. And as you can see, we are running, can you help me grab that canopy off of there, camera crew? We are running an AR620 on ours, which is just up here. We got a voltage alarm with a Gen 1 30C 4S pack. So we'll do a little ground handling. Obviously we have the Ordnance on here, and these are fixed gear, and the canards are looks only. This is a Delta Wing plane, so it's quite simple in its operation. So we don't have any flaps or anything to worry about, no crow or any of that complexity. Sounds very good. I think it's gonna get in the air quick. They do have a lot of reinforcements for belly landing, but I'm not sure if I'm gonna trust this beauty to a belly landing. All right, guys, without further ado, our timer is reset. We have a voltage alarm set for 3 minutes. Here we go. There's full throttle. Oh yeah, baby, she's in the air. Feeling really good, kind of got a little bit of an up attitude. That's about 50% throttle. The stabilizer's working really nice though. Here we go, here we go. Oh yeah. It feels kind of different, just like the last one I flew, which would have been an 80. Okay, camera crew, we're gonna come down here to the tip of the driveway. Sorry about the silhouette. We were just trying to get some calm. It's been so windy lately. Okay, full throttle pass on the inside if we can get it. Okay. You good?
Yep.
Okay, so just keep in mind, it looks really cool. There is a rudder on this plane, but you know what? It feels easy to fly, but it feels weird to fly because it is a Delta Wing with televons. Full throttle. You need a lot of juice to make it do what you think you want it to do. There is definitely not air over the control surfaces from throttle, which leads to some different handling characteristics that we're not used to. Obviously, it's not super hard to fly because I'm getting around just fine. But as you can see, tons of elevator. I think we have that battery possibly even just a touch too far back. Woo! The rudder is effective. It's kind of weird. You can shake the tail around. Okay, I want to try auto leveling because there is auto leveling on this plane. Okay, so getting it into mostly level, and then there's auto leveling. It's kind of got that up attitude to it, but this is not a powerhouse, so I am out full throttle, getting the nose down, out of the auto leveling, just so you guys know. This thing is not a powerhouse, guys. That's 100% throttle on 4S right there. Definitely feel like it could probably use a little bit of trim. I do not know my voltage. I need you to stay where you are. I'm gonna try to final, but I want you to come back about 10 steps. Perfect, thank you. Okay, so we're gonna try finaling this way just for lighting reasons. Okay, so just seeing how this settles down. You gotta stay in the throttle a little bit just to get it here. I'm just curious, whoa, she's moving quick. She's moving really quick, but she didn't tip over. Guys, that wasn't terrible. I was very nervous about landing this thing on the aircraft carrier. And that's what we call our driveway when we have a plane that goes fast. I definitely have to say it's one of the wonkiest flying FMS planes we've ever done. Now, I felt the same way about the 80mm, full disclosure. But I just don't know if it can handle all the ordnance and everything on there. I feel like it needs it off. And by the way, just show you this. This is without trimming. You can see I got quite a little bit of input there. Let's call it, oh gosh, that's weird. I'm not in monitor. There we go. Just to keep it going straight, look at my rudder, 60%. Now, I don't have to do that in flight. It just happens to be a trim issue. But what a beautiful looking plane. Definitely something new and different for us here from FMS. So thank you, FMS, for doing that. I do feel like it's a little bit on the anemic side, even on 4S. It could use a little bit more juice to make me feel more comfortable as a pilot. But I'm gonna say it feels anemic, but it doesn't stall like you would expect it would. Also, it launched pretty quick. It got in the air. It felt very ballsy off the ground. It just didn't necessarily feel ballsy in turns. Now, partly, I think that's got something to do with the way the wing design is. Okay, I'm gonna have the camera crew hold this for a sec. Ooh, and by the way, if you guys ever see this on your runway, little rocks when you're flying EDFs will destroy your EDFs if you suck them up. So kick them off of there if you can. Okay, so we're at 3.76, 3.74, 3.8, and 3.71, which that one seems to be the redheaded stepchild of the group. So yeah, that's pretty much a full charge, folks. And on 30C, it did just fine. Obviously, doing trim on the nose gear is challenging on these fixed gear planes. So I think really what we ought to do is we ought to plop another pack in here. Good straps. You'll note that I was way back off the strap, but I had no problems bringing it in. I would have liked to be able to flare without the concern of tip stalling, but you do have a rudder on this plane. The issue is you get into a wash and the rudder is somewhat ineffective because you're washing all the wind and air is going around the wing. So it blocks the actual elevator and rudder. So, all right, pack is definitely hot, a little bit pissed about that. So what I'm gonna do is we'll pause and switch and come right back. Okay, so we're gonna load, whoops, we're gonna load this 100C 2200 4S. And you're like, 100C, do you need 100C? No, you need 25C is what the manufacturer recommends. But that being said, my 30C was a little bit toasty. And so we're just gonna throw caution to the wind and go all the way up in size and see if it makes an improvement. Our shelf liner trick has worked really good on this plane. I was feeling like, and by the way, there's tons of room back there. You see how far I can go with that? Mm-hmm. I had mine right about there, okay? So that would be about an inch back from the leading edge of this strap, maybe just a hair more. Okay, I feel like I could probably get a good flared landing on it. And also, I feel like I can probably adjust this on the spline to get my course adjustment because we're so far off. And that would help quite a bit. So also the elevator adjustment, I felt like in auto leveling, it was quite up and pointing to the right. So I don't know if that's normal. And then listen to the engine or the motor. See, that is the weirdest start. We haven't heard one like that in a while. So it sounds kind of like a sailplane when you don't have braking on or when you put braking on. All right, so first thing we're gonna do, back taxi. Oh, should I take off the ordnance for this flight?
Oh,
yeah, why don't we do that real quick? I'd like to hand launch, but I just don't want to destroy the plane. Well, it's a 1.5 millimeter set screw. It's very easy to get this taken apart. I think for now, we'll just take the drop tanks off. We had trouble with our drop tanks, but not with the missiles. Okay. I think we'll take off everything but the actual missiles on the wing tips. Okay. Oh man. Because look at this, guys. They really thought of everything with this. Protection for that. See what I'm talking about on this one though? It is very challenging. It's like cringe-worthy. Oh man, I know. I just feel like I'm gonna break it, but I didn't. Okay. And one more, and then, like I said, we'll leave the missiles on the wingtips. Now, those wings, they come off with the whole rail, so it's gonna look wonky if you don't do that. But I think it'll look cooler in flight, and it should be a lot more aerodynamic. So, without further ado, camera crew is gonna throw the ordnance down in the grass, and we're gonna take off, guys. I am gonna clear my timer. That was about right. Mm-hmm. Okay, now 100C pack here, guys, just a little bit of back taxi. But we know we can make it. And so the disparity between trim on rudder, oh yeah, just made it. Okay, here we go, full speed. Good roll, beautiful, feels better. It is easier to fly than I thought it was gonna be. The reflex really helps. The stabilizer is well tuned, guys. I mean, we just plopped in a 620 and we didn't do anything special. But like that, upside down, it'll do upside down, but it's like, you better be in your throttle. I have plenty of elevator to make it fly upside down. It just feels like it's slow. It's kind of a weird, inconsistent feeling. Okay, go over my head here. Thank you. So now I'm gonna go over here and try to jank it and do a cornhole. Oh, it does not do a cornhole, not even close. That was what a cornhole looks like. Let's see if we can high alpha it way up. Oh, that's really cool. But it's very scary too, because then you have to really get into the throttle hard, and you have to have a lot of power to get out of that maneuver, because you lose your rudder totally. Oh, that looks pretty sweet though. Guys, let's do some more bull flying. Can you scooch forward, please? There you go. All the way to the bull. All the way to the bull. Thank you. Guys, it's getting to be fall, so our lighting is getting crappy earlier, but still the gray up against the muted colors, fall colors, could tend to blend in, so just be a little bit careful. I'm gonna bring the throttle down. You just don't have that plethora of power that you want. Okay, I wanna see if we can do a touch and go here. Okay, you guys ready? All right. It gets ready for landing. Oh yeah, baby! Woohoo! Up and over the power lines. What a beautiful skyline too. Using the rudder to kind of tempt the nose over for this turn. Okay, so we're gonna bring it in pretty high speed, coming in hot. Rotating, and then as you can see, down we go. Getting airspeed, and then it's under control. See, like I said, you had 20% more airspeed or 10% more airspeed, she'd feel a lot more controllable. Oh, it sounds so gorgeous though. Folks, it's like this. This is the type of plane that you have to learn to love, because it's gonna fly weird the first few flights. And I'm just gonna warn you right now, I am still nervous about the Rafale 80. Okay, that's our timer. The 100C pack is holding up really nicely. I'm not having any issues. Okay, I'm just gonna go into the bowl here and try to final. Camera crew, you good just for safety and stuff? Yep. Okay. Trying to get that nose up just a hair. Slipping, which is a weird maneuver in an airplane like this. Okay, full flare, and whoa, buddy, that's what happens when you lose the wind over your rudder and also tip stall at the same time. But you saw how slow I got it. I was in ground effect. Wasn't so bad. I feel like it could have been executed better as a pilot, but I felt like the plane handled it nicely. Okay, let's see if I can make the turn. Oh yeah, that is so cool. Okay, back taxi time, and we'll check the voltage alarm. That thing looks sweet without the Ordnance, I think. It's funny, I usually like Ordnance. I think it makes especially Warbirds look so much better. But those landing gear are not only robust, but beautiful. And I gotta say, I'm actually very, very tempted, just if we have enough voltage, to just pull that landing gear off and do a belly landing. But let's go ahead and maybe save that for second thoughts. I'd like to be able to play with this off camera a little bit more and get a little better with it. One thing that's really nice about this is it's light, it's easy to hold, and it's beautiful. Now, I did lose my antenna in the packaging, and I just broke it off like 4 times while I was building it, and I just got sick of putting it back in. We did have it. We could have glued it back in, chose not to. The cant on the front of this landing gear is super smart, and then also that just pops out. It's just a looks thing. Now, would this do grass hops? I don't know. I don't know if our grass is really short right now, and I still wouldn't want to tempt fate, because these gear do get it up and out, but you're not probably going to get the airspeed like you want. You'll have to catch a bounce to get out of the friction of the landing gear. Now, I want to show you this. They come out super easy on the mains, okay, and then they just pull straight up. But this one, you do have to have, oh, we have a bug. Awesome. We killed one bug. Congratulations, me. And then, yes, the refueling tube or whatever this thing is does come off pretty easy, so you can do that without tools. I'm not going to take it off because I like the way it looks. And then the front has a nose cone that's removable, but it's clipped in, which is something we haven't seen in the past, and or at least not in recent history. Now, it is keyed, but it doesn't look like it's keyed, and you can't stick it on backwards, so make sure you get it the right way or it will look stupid, sort of, because it does actually go on. Okay, so other thoughts. I feel like there's a lot of control authority on the elevator. I almost feel like we need to kick up the Expo a little bit higher. I did not mess with my Expo, incidentally. I'm gonna stand here and just give them a little better light. I love the decals. Very, very good base match color. Love it, guys. If you're into the Rafale, you need this plane. It is a cool and fun one. Now, the fact that the canards are not functioning, to me, is a big disappointment, but it's not a deal breaker, because as you can see, the plane does well. Obviously, the addition of canards really complicates the radio setup, so I don't know how the reflex would work in that environment, but we're about to find out because we're going to be doing the 80 as well with the Reflex V2 soon. So as you can see, one of the most beautiful undersides of a plane that you've ever seen, and yet we're supposed to then belly land this. It just kills me to do that.
Yeah.
I know that there's some of you out there that have to hand launch and belly land, which, by the way, I think this plane would be a challenge to hand launch because you saw the airspeed, and it might be one where you have to hold the tail like this and launch like that. Get it into high alpha, but fast. Because remember, once you're into that high alpha, and it does really good in high alpha, there is a point where you start washing all the control surface from the rudder, it's gone. And you'll find it probably on your first climb out, and you'll be like, oh crap, how do I get out of this maneuver? Because the plane just wants to like sit there, and it's very weird. So the only thing you can do is roll out of it. And once you roll out of it, you're gonna start moving air across the surfaces again. You guys saw that up there. I don't know if you guys were paying close attention, but you saw it where I finally rolled it in and I started to maintain control. So practice a few mistakes high. If you're a newer pilot, if you're a more veteran pilot, it probably won't be a big deal. I do want to say it wasn't that hard to land. And historically on planes that are complex like this, I struggle a little bit on landings. Just because they fly different than everything else. We land a lot of different planes on a short runway that's not very wide, but it is very smooth. So that does help. And like all the cracks are filled and everything, so it's very smooth and that does help. Also, cheaters were appropriate. EDF sounds absolutely fantastic. Give them a shot of that fan. It is just gorgeous, folks. So I would definitely say, FMS, you did an amazing job on this plane. I think that some of my gripes with it are probably gripes that the engineering staff had to try to hold weight down. And cost. I mean, maybe it's a cost thing. But I can definitely tell you this. The thing flies good anyway. I mean, you don't have to have the canards to make the thing do cool stuff, but canards do help you do cool things. So just keep in mind, you don't need them to make this manageable, but you need them to make it over the top. And I think that's what the 80 is going to be. So if you guys are interested in this, check the link in the video description below. Throw us a bone, buy it from the link. You don't pay any extra, but you do get us commission from the manufacturers, which is how we fund our channel. So if you want to help us in that way, that'd be awesome. If you hate this plane, but you like another FMS plane or another plane that we reviewed in the past, check the links down a little bit further or head over to www.brianphillipsrc.com and it will help you to sort through the plethora of planes, aircraft, and other things that we've reviewed over the years, because there is so much that we can hardly remember it ourselves. So that being said, guys, thanks so much for watching, for helping us to have this amazing opportunity to review these amazing aircraft, and they are getting so good. And I gotta say, my first flight, I feel like my second flight was twice as good. So I wanna fly again, but it's been so dang windy and I've been so dang busy at work that I haven't had the opportunity. And then look at this beautiful sunset here. Yeah. It's just absolutely gorgeous. But looks can be deceiving, folks. Yeah. You see a sky like that and you think, I can fly. Yes, you can, but when you're filming it, you don't have enough light to show it. And then finally, look at this. Look how gorgeous that looks now. Yeah. It's just amazing. So fall is late this year in Iowa, which is cool because we're getting some warmer weather, but it's also a nasty reminder of what's right around the corner, and it's Christmas. And what comes with Christmas? Snow and Santa Claus. So if you are possibly acting in that position and role for your family, you might want to start thinking about getting stuff like this coming. Just saying. So that being said, we're gonna have some good ideas for you coming up. Camera crew has something to say.
You were gonna show them the voltage on the battery.
Oh, the voltage.
I mean, you've been talking for a while, but
sorry,
doing
it's not gonna change that much on this plane. 100C pack did great. 3.71. Yeah, looks like we're right at about where we were. So right at storage voltage.
Yeah.
Oh, that was our children, not a wolf. I thought it was a woof.
I thought it, okay. Sounds
so
similar.
I love the way that this plane looks, guys. I want so much out of it. My complaints are this. Number one, I want more power to feel more comfortable. But that being understood, and I'm just gonna go full circle with that. That being understood, that's not super powerful. I feel like it has enough power to do the job. And you saw how fast it rolled. So it's definitely got the juice there. I just think that I'm not very good at flying it. So this is a moment of humbleness. And I'm just gonna say, I don't know that I'm that good at flying this plane, but it is very light. The bigger Rafale is not light, but it's very powerful because it's 6S configuration with an 80. And it's got a lot of juice.
And it's very big though.
But it's also very big and a lot more expensive. So if you guys are balancing beauty, excitement with budget, this might be the better choice. Plus you're using a cheaper receiver.
No, that's just our neighbors.
Oh, it's our neighbors. It's not our kids. Okay, I thought it was our kids. I was like, why are our kids yelling? So if you're trying to kind of maximize the value, I think this is the value choice. I think the bigger Rafale is going to be more of like an enthusiast choice. You're going to really need to want it if you want the bigger one. But we'll be reviewing that and you can make up your own mind. And guys, we did review it a while back, but this is going to be coming up with the Reflex V2. Now, I must say, some of you guys are going to ask me the question, so I'll just answer it right now. If you like running Spectrum for Safe and AS3X, you get both of the features built into Reflex V2. And you also have the off function, which you can do in a plug-in fly on an AR631, as low as 631, as low as 630 as well, if you don't want the antenna. I would recommend probably having the antenna. This thing can go far away, can get away from you quick if you want. So I would go with the 631 so you have the external antenna. The 630 doesn't have the antenna, it's like $5 less. So you can still have the AS3X in safe and you can have the off condition if you'd like. And this might be one of those planes where you want to just shut the stabilizer off so you can do insane things. For me, I fly with the stabilizer even when I'm trying to cornhole. And as you can see, the cornhole maneuver did not work, not even close. It was so weird and I got into wash immediately and the rudder was totally invalidated. So low pressure system from going down like this stopped it from working. That's fine. Maybe we need to kick it sideways first and then try to roll it. But I don't know if we can do that. So all things considered, good plane, good price point, definitely light, runs on 4S, which is a lot cheaper than 6S. You can get an S155 rather, which is a lot cheaper charger than going with like an S2200 and having a full dual 200 watt charger, or an S1400, which should be like a 400 watt single charger that'll go up to 6S. But you get all the bang for the buck with that cheaper charger. Get yourself a good transmitter though, because you do want the better transmitter. I'm starting to suggest the 10 because there's not a big jump from the 8 to the 10 and we have finally ran out of channels, and just recently. And we're like 129 planes in. But keep in mind, some of those were on the NX6 as well. So the NX6 has that 7th channel. The 8 only has 8, the 10 has 10, but when you do AS3X and safe, you gain 2 additional channels above those that are not pluggable on an 8-channel receiver. So you can do some really cool stuff. And if you go with the AR620 and the Reflex, you get full features and there is an additional channel that's unused currently. So you could actually set up something else, like maybe an inboard flap if you wanted. Flaps on this plane will not be a good fit. Or if you decided to do canards, you could technically put that in there electronically. But your stabilizer would not be active on those, because you probably don't want those to be inverse of this, but you could actually do that. So servo number 1, servo number 2, some sort of a carbon fiber rod that would join on there, but then you got to figure out a way to get them to work as full functioning. It would look just like a Teleron, except it's going to be a canard. I'm not going to do it, but you guys could. And you do have the spare channel on the 620, so that's pretty cool. All right, anything else you want to add, camera crew? That was a lot.
I think that was, it's not a beginner plane.
No, it's definitely not a beginner plane. The way that this thing flies, you can actually be beginner-ish, but you will get into trouble. You will end up in a tree. You will end up tip stalling it, a weird attitude, and crashing. That's not to say that you shouldn't try. Just don't try this. Like get a PA-18 or something that's going to be a little easier and more conventional flight. Because this, if you learn to fly with this, you're going to fly everything else bad. Yeah. Because you want to fly this weird, because it's the weird plane. And that being said, I do love the looks, and yeah, it definitely screams for afterburners and things like that. But I'm probably not going to invest a lot more time on this, because I think the 80 is where I'm going to be myself, as opposed to the 64. But the 64 definitely has a lot to offer. I think a hand launch and a second thoughts will be something we'll look at doing, because I'm curious to see how well you can belly land this without tearing everything up, because I think you can really get that tail end to hit the ground first, thus really mitigating the damage. But like even the antennas they put here, you know, they lined plastic on the leading edges of the nacelles. They lined plastic all up in here, which is really smart. And then of course they have reinforcements within these Ordnance on the wingtips. I don't think they're gonna hold up in a rough landing, or if you get into tall grass, I think it's gonna get all caught in here and it's gonna be a big mess. So those are my thoughts. Hopefully that's helpful for your decision-making process, because that's what we try to do here on Brian Phillips RC, is show you what it really does, not what the manufacturers want us to say it'll do, because who really cares what the people selling it want you to know? We want you to know that it really works or it doesn't really work. And so I would say that some of the limitations you might have thought this plane had, it does, but it's definitely flies better than I thought it was gonna fly. So I'm super excited to bring this one to you, and special thanks to the camera crew, one of the best on YouTube, and obviously to our amazing audience and the Patreons that are supporting us. If you want to become one of those, we have links at the very top of the video description, just under the links to this plane. We always link to the battery we used or something similar. We let you guys sort through the C ratings, but we'll link to what we used in here and the AR620, as well as the transmitter in case you guys want to get exactly what we have. And if you have questions about that, hit us up in the comments below. We try to get to them as quick as we can, but we are a little bit behind right now, so please be patient with us. Any other questions or comments there, camera crew?
I don't think so.
So definitely, guys, we have so much coming. We have boxes stacked all over each other, and we just can't get them opened and flown quick enough because the weather has been so terrible lately. And like I said, the reminder of beautiful changing color behind us, it's going to get more beautiful, is that there's not going to be leaves on the trees soon, which means you're going to lose a lot of that protection from the trees. And also that means in our environment, we're going to have a lot of wind. Yeah. And then soon it's going to be like minus 30 degrees, and we're going to be out here filming still because we're insane diehards.
Yes.
Did I cover that?
Yeah, except you said we.
We. I'm insane diehard. Yes. Okay. All right, guys, that's all you get for tonight. Thanks so much for watching. Stay tuned here on Brian Phillips RC.